Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever and wherever you're watching or listening. This is the Awesemo NHL DFS Strategy Show, and I'm your host, Michael Clifford, aka Slim Cliffy. And joining me for the next hour to talk about the marvel that is the top line for the Colorado Avalanche, our single entry assassin, Mr. Joshua Harris. Josh, how you doing today, buddy?
Pretty well. They dragged my sorry ass into the green yesterday, so can't complain, even though they were like 9,000%.
Yeah, well, you know, on short slate, I mean, 6 games is a somewhat short slate. There weren't a ton of goals last night either. So, yeah, Colorado was definitely a necessity. Certainly some of their pieces. I didn't do that well last night. I was telling you before the show, I went single entry last night, went Florida power play with Calgary's Toffoli line. And I was watching some Marvel Daredevil, and at the end of the episode I checked the score of the Sabres Calgary game, 0-0 at the end of the first period. Not only was it 0-0, but Calgary was getting outshot, and I'm pretty sure the only guys on the Flames that had multiple shots in the first period were Milan Lucic and Noah Hanifin. So at that point I pretty much knew I was absolutely boned. I didn't do so well last night. You said you got dragged into the cash by our good friends Colorado won?
Yeah, I had Colorado won and Makar, and that helped. Makar got a 3-point bonus. So did Nishushkin, I think. But like I had Yarncroc and Toffoli as well. Yarncroc got absolutely robbed by Dustin Tokarski. It was a ridiculous save, but they did nothing. And then I also had Brandstrom and Colin White, who didn't really do much either. So it was just basically Colorado won, Makar and Connor Hellebuyck just dragging me in there, even though Hellebuyck didn't get the win.
Yeah, Winnipeg didn't look very good last night either. Like there's a difference between like kind of looking bad and looking like you don't even want to be there, and Winnipeg kind of looked like the latter. I mean, maybe it's something affecting them. Like they thought they might be a playoff team this year. Things kind of fell apart in the second half here, injuries and all that. Just haven't been playing well. It's the trade deadline too, right? Like it's right around the corner. There might be some guys from heading out from that team. So maybe a little bit tough for Winnipeg last night. Cale Makar did a great job last night, but the last thing I want to talk about is that Caps Hurricanes game. And when I saw Seth Jarvis score, like it was kind of upsetting. Like you could almost see that coming, right? Like Carolina changed up their lines. He had missed a bunch of games. He was a healthy scratch. Like you knew he was going to come out as a young player, be super excited to play. And like, you know, just because a young guy is getting healthy scratched or getting low minutes or something like that, it doesn't mean he's not a good prospect or will be a good player. You know, Carolina is a bona fide cup contender. They're stacked from the top to the bottom. So, you know, that Seth Jarvis can't get in every lineup or every night in the lineup doesn't necessarily reflect poorly on him. It just means they're a really deep team and he's a young guy. Like I think he could be a difference maker for them moving forward because they need some goal scorers.
Yeah, and I don't think they want to put him down on the third or fourth lines. They want him in the top 6. I know he played in the fourth line yesterday, but like if he's going to get consistent ice time, he's going to want to have. They want to give him some line mates. They don't want to have him play, you know, with Jordan Martinook. But I don't know. I feel like Jarvis should be in the lineup and Martinook should be down in the bottom 6 or scratched or whatever. I'm not the coach. I'm not Rod the Bod, but, you know, they do miss Tony DeAngelo. So when he comes back, that should help as well, too.
Yeah, that should be a big boost. Speaking of Rod, I had to laugh. I'm pretty sure he did a coach availability like 90 minutes before the game yesterday. And he was talking about how great the lines are rolling. He didn't really want to change anything. And then bam, of course, we get line changes. That's just kind of the way it goes. In the NHL. We are brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. Yahoo has been our sponsor this entire season. They've been very good to us. And if you're new to DFS, specifically if you're new to Yahoo DFS, they are giving away some free money for first-time Yahoo users. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. I see about 50 people have tuned in. Thank you so much for joining us here on this blizzarding Saturday up here in New Brunswick, Canada. I understand it's much nicer elsewhere in the world.
65 and sunny in the armpit of the country, New Jersey.
Yeah. So warmer elsewhere. Still not a bad day here. If you guys could, please throw us that thumbs up, click that like button, click the subscribe button if you haven't already. Those subscriptions do help us a lot. The road to 420,000 subscribers continues, and your subscription really does help us. Click the notification bell to get alerts when we do go live. MMA was already on today. We have PGA every week. I wonder about F1 now that F1 is in the mix here on DraftKings. NBA is all obviously still in the thick of things. MLB is on the way. Lots of shows. So click that bell to get the alerts. Free premium tools and data up on the site. We have them almost every day. Today is no exception. We have our NBA main slate ownership projections. So if you're playing some NBA tonight, be sure to check out what ownership projections we have. We also have our NHL top stacks. Free for everybody to view up at Awesemo.com. So if you hear Josh and I talk about line ownership, top 2 percentage, leverage, any of those terms, it all comes from our top stacks tool. So it's free for you to follow along over at Awesemo.com. And we also have our UFC pro plays up on the site. You said your betting article was up. The UFC already started though, hasn't it?
UFC just locked 10 minutes ago. Yeah. But the two bets that I wrote up are not in the first fight. They're later on in the card. So they're still available to bet. So if you want to read that and bet my bets, I bet them too. So if you win, I win. If you lose, I lose. You can yell at me. It's a good time.
Yeah, that's kind of the way it goes. We usually it's everybody wins together, everybody loses together here at Awesemo. We're also giving away a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum through our podcast. So head on over to the Awesemo podcast channel below and give us a 5-star review with your Twitter handle or Awesemo username, and you will be entered to win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. All right, Josh, I see a super chat in our chat from Glenn Smith, a $5 super chat. Thank you very much for that. We really appreciate those. He says, since I'm so out of touch, any 2 lineups to watch out for trade deadline today? Obviously, we will touch on those as we go along through the show. Typically, you want to watch out for the bad teams because the bad teams are the ones that are offloading their UFAs. So certainly that Ottawa-Montreal game is one to watch. Like Ottawa, they scratched Nick Paul last night, right? So suspect he won't be playing here tonight either. There might be some guys coming out of the Montreal lineup too. No confirmation yet. We'll definitely talk about that, but that would be one to watch. I would also say Detroit, Seattle would be one to watch. I know Vancouver, like Brock Besser and JT Miller and all those guys there's been a lot of talk, but it seems like they want to hang on to them. So I think it'd be Detroit, Seattle. That would be a bit more of a concern here. Those are teams that are certainly well out of the playoff race, might be looking to unload some UFAs, and it's also a late start. We should, get some updates from them here shortly as they start going through their morning skates, but that's one thing to watch for. Anything else that we should add here?
Yeah, maybe Nashville. There hasn't been much rumbling about them trading guys, but I know they've been shopping, Forsberg. So I don't know. There hasn't been any rumblings. It's just he could be oh, by the way, yeah, we're scratching Forsberg for, team reasons tonight. So just be aware of that.
Yeah, that could be one that pops up. If there's some sort of trade brewing for Forsberg, they certainly won't risk an injury to him here tonight. So yeah, definitely watch out for that. The Ottawa game, the Detroit game for sure, and definitely take a look out for Nashville. Glenn also says, as a longtime Sens fan, we are bad. I would say that brighter days are ahead, but
Glenn, did you watch that game yesterday? It was one of the worst games.
You might need a new owner too. We'll talk about that. Would also like to give a shout out to Bobby Margarita, the unofficial sponsor for me today for the show. Shout out to Bob McKenzie up here in Canada on TSN. What do you got there, Josh?
Yeah, I don't have Bang because it's 1:30 or 1:40 p.m. If I drank a Bang now, I wouldn't sleep until Tuesday. But if you're from the New Jersey area, Joe T. Stuff's awesome. I suggest you ordering it if you never had it. They got, peach, raspberry, unsweet, sweet, whole bunch of stuff. They have green tea, you know what I mean? Joe T, hit me up, man. Yeah. I don't work for free.
Yeah, Joe T, Bobby Margarita. If you're in New Jersey or in Canada, be sure to take a look out for those. Thanks for being our unofficial sponsor for today's show. All right, let's get to these games, Josh. We have the Ottawa Senators with a 3.2 implied goal total. They're going into Montreal. The Habs have a 2.8 implied goal total. As we mentioned, Ottawa played last night. They won 3-1 against Philly. Sorry, Mike. But we kind of expected a little bit of a letdown from the Flyers after such an emotional game the night before with Claude Giroux and all that. So I think it was kind of expected. What I will note from that Ottawa game is, yes, obviously Eric Brandstrom with Thomas Chabot out. Eric Brandstrom was running the top power play unit. It didn't lead to massive minutes, but nearly 23 minutes last night. He's still min priced over on DraftKings. So obviously that's a guy to keep an eye out for. On the Montreal side, some lineup notes. Brendan Gallagher was out. Jonathan Drouin is expected back in the lineup tonight. He's been out over a month now, I believe. And they said Josh Anderson could play tonight. I don't think he will. It doesn't really look like it, not by the way the team is talking. But Josh Anderson could be back in the lineup. And like one way or another, we're getting a whole new Montreal lineup probably once warm-ups hit. I suspect the Caulfield-Suzuki duo will stay together at a minimum, likely with Joel Armia. After that, I don't know what's going to happen. What do you think about this one, Josh?
Yeah, that's a big problem because, like, realistically, we should have interest in the Habs tonight. Ottawa's back-to-back on the road. They did not look great last night, despite playing a Philly team back-to-back on the road. So, I mean, like, you would imagine Suzuki Caulfield's going to be together, and that will interest me. You just don't know what the second line could be with Gallagher out, and possibly, it could be like Dvorak and Hoffman with what's his face coming back, Drouin. Like, we just don't know. Like, I have to wait and see lines. Like, I may have interest in some of these secondary lines tonight for Montreal. We just don't know what it's going to be. Luckily, it's locks at 7 p.m. Eastern. So, Marty St. Louis will get those lines out in warm-ups, and we can make our decisions there. Like a second line there that, Hoffman, Dvorak, and Drouin maybe will interest me. And it'll probably come in pretty low owned because on weekend slates, like people set their lineups and they go out and they go do their things now. So you can get that trio at pretty low ownership, I would imagine. So I'll wait and see what the Montreal lines are going to be before I make a decision. But, in a bottle, I do have some interest in Montreal tonight. I also have some interest in Ottawa, despite them being back-to-back on the road. That second line of Stützle, Connor Brown, Formenton looked good last night. We didn't know at the time of the show yesterday that Stützle was going to be back. We were assuming Nick Paul, if he was in, was going to be the second line center. They took Nick Paul out. Stützle, coming back from injury, ended up coming back in. They look pretty good together. So I do have some interest there at 12,100 on DraftKings. You want to go back to that top line? I think that's fine. They didn't look great. I know Norris scored a power play goal, but I don't know. They just didn't look like a great line last night. Nothing looked very good in that game, though. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to take anything away from there, but I think you can go back to that top line of Ottawa tonight. They're fully correlated, and Montreal's penalty kill still, even if it is improved a little bit, is still not good. So min on Ottawa. I do like Montreal, but I got to wait and see on lines.
Yeah, it is just really tough to say what you want to play on Montreal before you know the lines. Like, I think Jonathan Drouin might end up with Christian Dvorak. They played a lot together earlier in the year, but not since Marty St. Louis has been there, obviously, because Drouin has been injured. So do they want to go back to the duo that they were playing with under a different coach? I don't know. We'll see. One thing I will say is that Brendan Gallagher missing from the lineup is a sizable hit. Like, he's a pretty good possession player for this team. Like, he's good at driving offense, and he's not bad defensively. And that's something Montreal has struggled with even under Marty St. Louis. They have gotten better, much better, but it's something that they still do struggle with. So, like, I'm not sure Drouin coming in for Gallagher necessarily makes them a better team on the defensive end, at least. So that's one thing that does worry me. And Ottawa won. Like, I know it's a road back-to-back, but I was looking at their numbers without Zach Sanford. I talk about it all the time, how bad their numbers were with him. In their last 100 minutes together without him, they're generating 71 shot attempts per 60 minutes and 36 scoring chances per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Like, those are just stupendous offensive numbers. And the Montreal goaltending, let's face it, it has been a glaring weakness for them over the last month or so. Jake Allen coming back probably should help a little bit, but it's also only his second game back from injury here tonight. So how good he actually is, I guess we'll see. So, like, I agree with you that Ottawa won certainly in play here tonight. They're coming in relatively high owned. We have them near 20% ownership. I don't think it comes in that high. I think it comes in a little bit lower.
It's higher right now because we don't have a projection for Austin Matthews.
No, so that just came in.
Oh, did it?
Yeah. That just came in on our top stacks tool. And we also added Tyler Bertuzzi.
Refresh.
I just think maybe some of that cheaper Detroit takes away a little bit of the Montreal ownership here once we get like a proper Tyler Bertuzzi run and all that. So I do like Ottawa 1 again here tonight. I don't think they're going to be super high owned. They will be owned. Like, they're not coming in at like 6% or something like that. Don't think that, but I don't think they come in over 20% or something like that. So Ottawa 1 for sure. I'm not in so much on Ottawa 2. They are fine. Like, they're perfectly fine to use here. I think I would want Ottawa 1 because I want to take advantage of that Montreal penalty kill. Like you said, the Montreal PK just hasn't really turned itself around since Martin St. Louis got there. It's still in the bottom 10 of the league. So perfectly fine with Ottawa 1. If you want to throw in Stutzler or something for additional power play exposure, or instead of Colin White or something like that, I have no problem there, but it's Ottawa 1 for me on that side. On the Montreal side, I do like Caulfield and Suzuki quite a bit. The offensive numbers are coming down a little bit, but Ottawa's penalty kill is bottom 3 in the league by expected goals against since the All-Star break. And Montreal's power play is up 20% by expected goals since they added Cole Caulfield with Martin St. Louis coaching. So I think a better Montreal power play against a fairly weak Ottawa penalty kill on a back-to-back. Philip Gustafsson, not Anton Forsberg in net. So yeah, I do like Montreal 1. If we can get some sort of like Lehkonen, Hoffman, Dvorak line or something like that, I might be interested in a second Montreal line as well. It's just, we have to see if it's like, you know, Lehkonen, Remy Pitlick, Jake Evans on the second line. I'm just passing. But, you know, if we can get Mike Hoffman and Lehkonen together or something like that, I will have some interest. But for now, it's Suzuki and Caulfield. On the blue line, Romanov, Petrie, Edmondson. Those are the 3 guys playing a ton of minutes for Montreal of late. Romanov and even 3K over on FanDuel. Don't mind him. As Larry Bikes pointed out in our chat, very good man, Larry. The Zub played nearly 25 minutes last night for Ottawa. Got to think, if you don't want to play what should be a chalky min-price Brandstrom, then the Zub would be the pivot. What do you think?
Yep, Zub is fine. Even Holden's fine. Zaitsev also fine. Like, there's pivots off Brandstrom here, but if you are using the top line for Ottawa, I think, you know, min price Brandstrom obviously makes sense. On the Montreal side, I'm not really sure. Like, Romanov's been playing some big minutes. Kulak and Edmondson are min price, and you know, Petrie's over 4K, but I think he's fine in this spot as well.
Yep, I agree with that. Like, seems like Petrie's gotten better since Ducharme left, which
shocking.
Yeah, oh my God. Larry, let's get to our next game. Toronto 3.1 going into Nashville. The Predators have a 2.9 implied goal total. Obviously, Austin Matthews is back. He has finished his suspension, back on the top line with Bunting and Marner. Nick Robertson is out. I was kind of shocked to see that, but I mean, I guess the Leafs are pretty much panicking. You know, they're starting their AHL goalie is the guy that they're depending on right now. Robertson is out. Andre Kasha moves to his spot on the second line with John Tavares and Billy Nylander. Something I noticed, and I mentioned to you in our Discord earlier today, was that in their last game, not exclusively, but Nashville did start sending out that Eeli Tolvanen, Michael Granlund second line more against top lines. Now, I still suspect that Ryan Johansson and company will take a fair bit, if not the lion's share of the matchups against Matthews. But Matthews might get a bit of that Nashville second line here tonight. And anything beyond the Nashville top line is a really good matchup for the opponent. So I kind of like Toronto here. What do you like, Josh?
Yeah, I was looking for reasons to fade Toronto chalk tonight. There just aren't many. Like, I guess you could go to Tampa Bay, but then you'd be stacking against Igor. You could go to Calgary, but they're back to back on the road with minutes concerns. I guess you could, go mid range with like Ottawa and Vancouver or something like that. But like, there's plenty of cheaper lines to fit Toronto with. And like, even that top line with Ryan Johansson is at best like league average defensively. With Matthews back with Marner and Bunting, that line has ridiculous numbers. It's just is what it is. I like that Matthews is priced up to 9,600. It's just not like a free square. Like he's been like 8,700 at times. You're just like, we'll just one off Matthews. We can fit him in with the lineup here. 9,600, it's expensive, but you can make it work. Marner under 8K is acceptable. And since the 2 games that Matthews was suspended, Bunting's price dropped like 1,500. So like it's still like they're 12, they're 21-6, which is okay. But I think, with Matthews at 9,600, you may see a little bit less one-off ownership on him, but I don't know. There's some cheap Montreal lines, there's cheap Seattle, there's cheap Detroit, there's cheap Vancouver, so maybe you don't, but I think you can go about this 2 ways with Toronto, and it's not surprising. You either go full Toronto 1 here, you go full Toronto 2, or you power play stack. Toronto 2 is a bit cheaper, but they still have 2 guys on the top power play. And Andre Kasha there instead of Alex Kerfoot is a big upgrade. We've talked about the second line numbers with and without Kerfoot. Anyone but Kerfoot, and they get better. Andre Kasha there, is fine. So if you want to go to Toronto 2, I think that's fine for me. I'm probably going to go to Toronto 1 or, leave off Bunting and add in a Nylander, but I haven't made my lineups yet. I am kind of leaning towards a little bit of Toronto power play because the Nashville penalty kill has been bad. Saros, does what he can, but like teams have been taking advantage of the Nashville PK recently. So I think I'm leaning towards a Nashville or a Toronto power play stack. On the Nashville side, like Nashville one's okay because like eventually this goalie is going to give up some goals here. He's maybe not. Maybe he's, Shane Spencer from the Yankees and he just goes nuts for a few months. But on this short slate, I think I'm going to consider some Nashville one here, especially if that second line does go out against, the Matthews line. It would free up, that, Forsberg line to go into Tavares, which is a better matchup. So Toronto still has issues on the blue line, so I'm fine with a little bit of Nashville here. Eventually, this AHL goalie is going to give up some goals. I know that's like bad to say like, yeah, eventually he's going to do it, but I'm hoping tonight's the night. So I think in MME you can definitely have some Nashville.
Yeah, I was looking at Nashville's ownership and coming in check, like the top line, at least coming in at 12% against the 13% top 2 stack percentage. So yeah, Nashville went just fine. The Toronto top line, like we talked about it before Matthews got suspended, that their expected goals generated had started to drop a little bit. They're starting to turn it around again. At least they were before Matthews got suspended. So that they're starting to pick up their offense certainly bodes well. But again, we have to bring up the ice time factor. We're seeing a lot across the league. Toronto is no exception. They're dropping the ice time of their top players and kind of spreading it out a bit more, which makes sense because Toronto's effectively had a playoff spot locked up since like November. So like why would they play Austin Matthews 21, 22 minutes a night in a meaningless non-conference game or something like that? So that's my concern with Toronto, is that they might see like only 18 or 19 minutes rather than 20 or 21. But again, I think it's kind of reflected in the price, right? Like, yeah, obviously Austin Matthews is super expensive, as you mentioned, but yes, Michael Bunting has seen his price drop. And, Mitch Marner, we've seen him in the low 8s on DraftKings of late. He's down to 7,700. So now that we have a reasonable price on that Toronto 1 line. I don't feel as bad for them if they only play 19 minutes instead of 21. So yeah, I do like Toronto 1 here tonight. They usually have pretty good leverage. I imagine they will again here tonight. They do in the early top stacks run. We'll see when we get another one. But yeah, I really do like Toronto 1 in the spot. Like Matthews should be a bit rested too, right? Like, he's just been kind of chilling for a few days. So hopefully he can show up like Seth Jarvis did last night for Carolina. So I do like Toronto 1. I'm not in as much on Toronto 2. I was looking at numbers with Kasha and Nylander. They're not very good together. Like the good numbers for Kasha in the top 6 have come when he's been playing with Mitch Marner. I don't know why that might be, but I also looked at Nylander's, like his individual numbers of late. Like he's been bad.
He's been terrible.
Like, yes, like really bad. I was looking at his high danger chances, which is, how many high danger scoring chances does a player get in a 60-minute span? He's 10th among Leafs forwards over the last 6 weeks in high danger chances. He's generating less than a quarter of what Austin Matthews is at 5-on-5. Not that we'd expect him to produce like Austin Matthews, but less than a quarter of the high danger chances. Like he's not doing anything. That combined with John Tavares hasn't really looked great all year. I don't know, man. I think I'm out on Toronto too, especially when I see their ownership. Like their ownership's at 17%. I imagine that comes down a little bit through the day, but I do expect double digits here. So double digits on the road against UC Saros. I think I'm out on Toronto too. Toronto 1 for me, maybe some Toronto power play, but I think it's Toronto 1 more than anything. On the Nashville side, I agree with you on Nashville 1. Like I said earlier, coming in with their top right on the top 2 stack, they're perfectly fine. Nashville 2 hasn't been good at all. Like I imagine that they're going to get run over by Toronto's top line here tonight. So I'm out on them. Tanner Jeannot is a guy that interests me. I actually had to look this up twice in different spots to make sure that the numbers weren't wrong for one website. Tanner Jeannot has been playing more than Philip Forsberg over the last 2 weeks per game. It's absolutely crazy. I don't know if you have to full stack Nashville 3, but Tanner Jeannot playing 17, 18 minutes. Yeah, I'll take him as a one-off for sure. So maybe some one-off Jeannot, maybe some Nashville 1. I do like Toronto 1 the most in this game. On the blue line, I don't know. We got a Roman Josi problem, buddy. He's 8,400, which puts him on DraftKings, which puts him in a tier of his own pricing wise. Like he's $1,800 more than the third most expensive defenseman here on this slate. I think for good reason. Like he has 11 points in his last 5 games or something like that. He has 72 points in 59 games on the season. I was writing him up for our Power Plays article this morning over at Awesemo.com. Free to read for anybody that wants to read it. Head on over to Awesemo.com. I wrote up some plays for tonight. Roman Josi has managed at least 5 shots on goal in 27% of his games this year and 3 blocks in at least 30%. He also has 72 points in 59 games. I'm tempted to play him even at 8,400 in what is not typically a great matchup because, Toronto does have a very good penalty kill. It just seems like he's just in one of those spots right now where he's carrying the team. I don't think you have to play him. It is expensive to play him. It's one of those things where you got to consider him, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I've been going back and forth about it, and I'm not going to force him in, but if I happen to get to a lineup where I have room for him, I'm not going to not play him. You know what I mean? I'm going to play him if I have the room for him, but I don't think I'm going to go out of my way to force Josi in tonight. I still think he's a fine play as a one-off at 8,400. And even if you want to put him in the utility and go, 2 min price D or whatever, and have 3D tonight and have Josi in the utility, I think that's fine. But yeah, again, if he gets into my lineup, he gets in. If I have room. I haven't built yet, obviously, but I think he's a fine one-off despite the price. Not much else, really. They're literally every other defenseman in this game I don't have much interest in. Besides maybe Morgan Riley, if you're correlating, his price is okay.
Yeah, I mean, Lyubushkin was one guy that stuck out for me for Toronto just because he's joined the top pair with Morgan Riley. The Leafs they're healthy scratching Timothy Liljegren tonight. I don't get it. But Ilya Lyubushkin, top pair, maybe he can run into enough blocks to provide some fantasy value on DraftKings tonight. But yeah, I think it's Yossi for me out of that game. All right. If you want to get access to all the great Awesemo Plus tools and content for nearly every DFS sport out there, you can do so with a weekly pass for $29.95. This includes full access to all the premium content and tools on Awesemo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, top stacks, our lineup builder, and a whole lot more. Of course, if you're only looking to play NHL DFS, then you can sign up for one of our Awesemo Plus NHL packages for as low as $3.95 a week. Please note that Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on and can be easily added on to these packages at checkout, but it is not included in our base package. However, it is a very valuable addition to your DFS arsenal, so for those looking to enter multi-contests, make sure to add the Cruncher. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. All right, let's get to your boys here, Josh. We have the New York Rangers with a 2.3 implied goal total going into Tampa Bay. The Bolts have a 3.2 implied goal total. They said Igor Shesterkin is going to start for the Rangers. I assume it's going to be Andrei Vasilevsky for the Lightning. We have seen some surprises of late, but I assume it's going to be Vasi against Shesterkin. Frank the Tank, your boy coming in on the second line for the Rangers. He's going to be playing with Brian Strome and Artemi Panarin. That puts Dryden Hunt down on the third line. Top line for the Rangers is the same. On the Bolt side, Brandon Hagel, he got traded yesterday to Tampa Bay from Chicago. Looks like he's going to be coming in on the third line for the Bolts. The one thing that stood out to me about this game is that, believe it or not, I mean, you might believe it in one instance, both these teams have very bad penalty kills, or at least they have since the All-Star break, which, 6 weeks now. That kind of intrigued me, but we've got arguably the two best goalies in hockey facing off against each other, which is, I think, is why you see a 5.5 total. What do you think here, Josh?
100% sure how Tampa's really going to match either. I would assume Point Palat, Cirelli going to get Mika Zibanejad.
That was my assumption as well, but these line combinations that Tampa haven't had a home game yet, so we don't.
Yeah. I'm assuming Point Plot, Cirelli going to see Mika Zibanejad, and then Stamkos, Kucherov, whoever. I don't even know who's with them. Tampa. Killorn, there it is going to get the Rangers second line. Kind of interests me a little bit in the Rangers second line. The problem is, Strome and Panarin have been so bad at 5-on-5. So, the Rangers have a 2.3 total on the road here. I don't know how much Rangers, they're not cheap either. I just don't know how much Rangers I'm going to get to here. The Rangers second line, I guess, with, Vetrano is 13.5. And I guess that's fine, but I don't know. I'd rather play the Montreal top line for less than the Rangers second line here tonight. The Rangers top line is fine, but they're going to get a tougher matchup. I guess you could power play stack, but it's a 2.3 total. The Rangers are fairly reliant on the power play to score. So I guess a nice little contrarian option would be to go Zibanejad, Kreider, Panarin, or Panarin, Zibanejad, Fox, something like that. I just don't know. In 1 to 3, I'm probably not going to play any Rangers. I think the bigger question mark in the game is what to do at Tampa, because the Rangers aren't very good defensively and they have a bad penalty kill. But it's the Igor factor. But again, this is Tampa Bay, and I think it's the only other spend up spot really besides Toronto. And I feel like Toronto, obviously Toronto's in a good matchup as well. If Georgiev was starting, we might get low in Toronto tonight because Tampa would just be so chalk. But Igor's already confirmed. So what do you do? I don't know. In 1 to 3, I'm honestly still considering the top line for Tampa here, despite it being Igor. I just feel like their ownership will be a bit depressed just because, I don't like stacking against Igor. But he has shown that he is human the past few games. He's given up some goals. The Rangers penalty kill is awful. If you take Igor out and you just put just say an average NHL goalie in there, you'd power play stack against the Rangers every game. It's just what it is. Igor's been saving their bacon. So I don't know. I'm kind of inclined to go to Tampa 1 here for that power. They're fully correlated on the power play. They're going to get, a bad 5-on-5 line in Strome. So I'm kind of inclined to go to Tampa 1 here, despite it going against Igor. So I think Tampa 1's fine. Tampa power play is fine. I think Rangers power play stack in MME would be a fairly contrarian option tonight.
Yeah, and another tough thing with Tampa 1 is they don't have a sample together, right? Kucherov was obviously injured all last year, has had some injuries this year, and him and Stamkos typically haven't played together this year either. So like, we don't really know how that Tampa 1 line is going to fare. Like we'd assume that they would play well, right? Those are, two supremely talented players, and one, Alex Killorn's no slouch either, but we have seen, good line combinations across the league kind of falter. What we thought would be good line combinations across the league kind of falter. I mean, Nashville 1, we just talked about Nashville. The old Nashville 1 is kind of a good example of that. They were good for a little while, and then, Michael Granlund got shuffled to the second line, and for very good reason. Like, maybe Alex Killorn doesn't, stick to that line, or maybe they move Steven Stamkos down. Those are kind of the concerns I would have here. Like I said, I think they'll be going into that second line for the Rangers. That second line for the Rangers has been fine, but not great. Since March 1st, they're about 51% of the scoring chances, but they're giving up 31 scoring chances against per 60 minutes. That's kind of why, if Kucherov, Stamkos, Killorn does get that matchup, which we think they will, not confirmed, but we think they will. It's a great 5-on-5 matchup for them. And then, like you said, like I said, bottom 5 penalty kill for the Rangers. So, definitely a great spot for a perfectly correlated top line. It's the ownership that really worries me. Like, we're looking at 20 to 25% ownership, again, facing what I think is the best goalie in hockey. It's concerning. There's not enough ownership here to say, yes, you have to fade them. It's way too much. It's only a 5-game slate. It's still a really good 5-on-5 and penalty kill spot. The only real concern is the goaltender. We've seen Igor have a couple bad games over the last couple weeks. So, it definitely could happen here. So if anything, Tampa Bay 1 or Tampa 2, Tampa 2 has been good together. Like, Tampa 1 hasn't had a sample. Tampa 2 definitely has. 3.2 expected goals generated per 60 minutes and 140 minutes together. That's really good. So, if you don't want to pay super expensive prices for those Tampa top guys, you can one-off Blau, one-off Cirelli, stack the line if you want. Like, I think that's just fine. But it is Tampa 1 that I do like more in this contest. On the Rangers side, it's Rangers 1 that I pointed out in my power plays article, not necessarily because they're a great line. Like, they're basically coming in about even by expected goals over the last 100 minutes, but it's the Tampa penalty kill. It hasn't been good. Bottom 5 by the penalty kill, like 8 goals against per 60 minutes, which isn't great by any stretch. So I think that Rangers top line is definitely in play here tonight. The one thing that concerns me is the Rangers are not drawing penalties at all. Lowest time on ice per game at 5-on-4 over the last 6 weeks, under 3 minutes of power play time per game. When they get on the ice, they're absolutely lethal. Nearly 16 goals scored per 60 minutes in that span. It's do they even get a power play? Do they get 2 of them? Do they get 3 of them? That's kind of the concern here. So I think I'd be more apt to one-off some guys from that Rangers top line, like one-off is a Banijad, one-off a Kreider, hope for that double dong on the power play or something like that. That's kind of where I am in this one. Nothing from Rangers 2 for me. I'm not going to go in on Frank the Tank just yet. I do think he's going to be a good addition. He is a shooter that line desperately needs. I just don't think that this is particularly the matchup for it. The ownership is coming in just fine on them. Like, let's get that out of the way. They're only coming in at 4% owned. So it's not like there's an ownership concern on the Rangers side for that second line. It's just the matchup, likely going into what I think is Point and Cirelli. On the blue line, the Rangers have really started to drop their defenseman ice time. Both Adam Fox and Jacob Trouba under 22 minutes a game over the last couple of weeks. That's concerning to me. Because that tells me that the Rangers aren't getting a lot of power plays, which is pretty obvious when you look at Fox's ice time and when you look at the Rangers power play ice time. And two, for Trouba, he's a guy that lives and dies by peripherals. You need ice time for peripherals. 21 minutes at 5,600 on DraftKings really isn't going to cut it for me. So I don't know, maybe a Keandre Miller from the Rangers side, somebody super cheap. On the Tampa side, I think this is a game where like a one-off Victor Hedman is fine. Like if you're really worried about Igor, maybe Hedman gets a goal, gets some blocks in, pays off that 7K. So if you don't want to pay up for the Rangers or Tampa forward, I think paying up for Hedman is just fine. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's honestly maybe just Hedman. If you want to play McDonough, I think that's fine. But the Rangers side, if you're not correlating Fox, which is a concern tonight because his minutes have dropped and the Rangers don't, they barely get on the power play. I think you dump all the way down to Keandre Miller. But I'd rather play Brandstrom than Keandre Miller.
Yeah, I can agree with that as well. We talked about Yahoo a little bit earlier in the show, and we have partnered with Yahoo Fantasy this NHL season to bring you some great offers. Check out our exclusive limited time offer, which gets you 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. To qualify, you need to be new to Yahoo, sign up for an account via the link below, deposit and play. That's it. Yahoo will send us your name after you played in your first paid contest, and we will reach out via email with your coupon. If you'd like to speed up the process of getting access, email support@awesemo.com and we'll get you set up right away. You can also claim a free $10 of site credit by clicking the link in the video description below, and that can be used to enter any Yahoo contest, including tonight's $2,000 NHL Baller. Make sure to use our DFS tools and projections designed specifically for Yahoo to give yourself the best shot at winning big. All right, let's get to this Calgary game. Calgary, 3.2 implied goal total. They're going into Vancouver. The Canucks have a 2.9 implied goal total. Calgary played last night. They're on a back-to-back. So it's likely Dan Vladash is going to be starting a net for the Flames. They've also played 5 and 8. They've been playing quite a bit of hockey of late. Going into Vancouver, Vancouver has changed up their lines again. Tanner Pearson, JT Miller, Brock Besser is the top line, as it had been for quite a bit of the season. They changed it up recently, but now they're back to that. The second line, Elias Pettersson has jumped up and joined Connor Garland and Bo Horvat. So those look like two pretty good lines to me. But this is a very, very good Calgary team. But again, back-to-back on the road, 5 and 8, starting the backup goalie. I think that's why you see Vancouver with the same implied goal total as Nashville and a higher implied goal total than Montreal. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I'm slowly talking myself into some Canucks here.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I'm just not 100% sure how they're going to match. Because I know Bruce Boudreau has been sending out Juho Mikko against top comp, but if I'm just not 100% sure that's the way it's going to go tonight. If you can tell me that JT Miller, Brock Besser, Tanner Pearson are going to avoid the top line for Calgary tonight, I think I'm interested in them. JT Miller is 7,200, which is expensive, but he's warranted that price recently. He's been playing really well. Besser's cheap, Pearson's cheap, so that line's not overly expensive. They're going to get their minutes. I'm just hoping they see a fair bit of that Backlund, Coleman, Lewis line. And if that's the case, I'm in on them. They have very good numbers together. They have almost a 200-minute sample this season. They're generating over 3 expected goals per 60, and 34 scoring chances, 4 per 60. That's very good numbers. So, I do like that top line here, and it's probably going to be Vladash tonight. This is 5 and 8, back-to-back on the road. They looked awful yesterday against Buffalo, who was back-to-back on the road. So, I don't know. I'm slowly talking myself into some Canucks here. I do like that top line. That second line's okay. I'm not really sure what to make of Pettersson, Horvat, Garland as a line. So I do like that JT Miller line. That's the line I'm looking at. On the Calgary side, like that top line played 20 minutes, but that game went into overtime last night, and it was a close game. So I feel like they just put him out on the ice more. I feel like tonight they're going to go back to like 15, 16 minutes tonight. So I do worry about their ice time there. They are fully correlated. This is a poor penalty kill for Vancouver. I don't think they're going to get much ownership tonight because you have, Toronto, you have Tampa, you have Calgary back-to-back on the road, 5 and 8. They looked terrible yesterday. But I think, if you're making a handful of lineups, like even just 20, I think, having some Calgary one is warranted here. This is a bad, Vancouver penalty kill. That second line really doesn't do too much for me. If anything, like you can go back to that third line, Yarncroc, Toffoli, Mangiapane. They'll probably get a good matchup from Vancouver. So I think you can go back to that line. But for me, it's Vancouver 1 and probably maybe a little bit of Calgary 3.
Yeah, it is important to bring up the ice time because we have been bringing it up for a lot of teams, and certainly Calgary. They've been cutting the ice time of their top stars. Like Johnny Gaudreau played just over 19 minutes last night, but like you said, they went to overtime, and he played nearly 2 minutes in that overtime period, which means he got about 17 minutes in regulation, which is about what they've been getting of late. And that's the big concern here. We talked earlier about the Toronto top line being down to like 18, 19 minutes, a lot of games. And whether you want to pay that price, like, do you want to pay basically the same price? Like Toronto 1 is coming in at 21,600 on DraftKings. Calgary 1 at 21,300 on DraftKings, and they're only separated by $900 on FanDuel. So, like, do you want, if you're playing on FanDuel, do you want to stack a $25,000 line that is on a road back-to-back that might play 17 minutes here tonight? I think it's fine to play them simply from an ownership perspective. We're expecting about half the ownership of their top 2% expected percentage from that Calgary top line. So I think playing Calgary 1 is perfectly acceptable here tonight. I don't think I'm going to be spending up that for a road back-to-back playing 17 to 18 minutes. Like, if I was playing 120 lineups or 150, I'd strongly be considering it. In a single lineup, I don't think I'm going to get there. So I'm out on Calgary 1. Calgary 2, which would be like the Backlund, Coleman, Toffoli line, or Lewis line, sorry. I'm way out on them. I will never play that line. Toffoli, Mangiapane, Yarncroc is the one that I want to talk about. Yarncroc obviously joined the team recently. He's still very reasonably priced across the industry. The problem is that they still have him listed as a winger, so especially over on DraftKings. So you're going to have to get a little bit funky with your builds because it is a triple winger third line that they're running out. But it's not going to be like a 13-minute third line. They're going to play around 15 minutes. And Toffoli and Mangiapane this year have been absolutely dynamite together. They're up to about 65 minutes in their sample. They're controlling 63% of the shots and 59% of the scoring chances. Like, they've been excellent. And I think the matchup is going to go Miller against the top line for Calgary. And then you get, Mangiapane and Toffoli out against the second and third lines from Vancouver. I think they can do some damage. So I do like that Calgary, Toffoli, Mangiapane line as a stack here. If you want to get to the top line, the ownership play is just fine on them. It's just the way I'm building is probably Calgary 3. On the Vancouver side, it's just right to the top line. Miller, Pearson, and Besser. They've actually been very good together this year. 36 scoring chances generated per 60 minutes, controlling 55% of the scoring chances. So I do like Vancouver 1 here tonight. I can't believe I'm talking myself into Vancouver, but here I am talking into myself into the Canucks. Calgary is taking a lot of penalties. They have the most time shorthanded of any team in the league over the last 6 weeks. It's just that they have an excellent penalty kill. If Vancouver,
what we don't talk about too much, Vancouver is one of those teams that are very heavily reliant on scoring on the power play.
Yeah, that too. Especially now where they're lowering the ice time of everybody, right? So Vancouver doesn't have a very good penalty kill, but they also don't take a lot of penalties. They're in the top 10 for lowest time shorthanded. So I agree with you on that. I think for me, I would just go to the Vancouver top line. I also like Calgary 3. On the blue line, some spread out ice time on the Flame side really sucks. I think Hanifin at 3,800 is okay. I think if I would only be playing defenseman from this game, Hanifin or correlating with the top power play. That's about it. What do you think?
Yeah, there really isn't much in terms of punting that I want to do here. Like the mid-range Calgary guys are a little bit too expensive. I guess Hanifin's fine, but I don't want to play 4,200 Tyler Myers. Don't want to play Ekman Larson. Hamonic is 5K. Probably just go up to Quinn Hughes.
You don't want to pay 5K for 18 minutes of Travis Hamonic? I mean, the last time I said that, I'm pretty sure he had 7 blocks or something. So maybe he'll end up shutting me up. If you haven't checked out our premium betting pick subscription, now is the time to do so. Click the link below to subscribe to our Betting Picks Discord channel as Alex Awesemo Baker, Ben Raza, and Steve DeColts Buzzard use Awesemo's industry-leading projection models to identify the best bets available in the NBA, NHL, and college basketball every day. We are confident these bets will be worth more than the price of admission, so click that link below to start betting today. Most of our shows have already happened here today, but we do have some basketball coming up later on. So if you're playing a little bit of NBA tonight, we have the NBA Deeper Dive coming up at 5 p.m. Eastern with Eitan and Rayan, and then the Live Before Lock coming up right after that. All right, Josh, let's get to this last game. Detroit 3.0 implied goal total. They're going into Seattle. The Seattle Kraken also have a 3.0 implied goal total. I've been looking for lines from the Red Wings because Tyler Bertuzzi has been out of the lineup for the last 3 games. He's expected back tonight for Detroit. We just don't know exactly how they're going to line up because, he's been out for 3 games. And I haven't seen a warm-up skate from them or a morning skate from them yet. So we're assuming the top line for Detroit stays together, and then Bertuzzi goes to the second line with Pius Suter and Filip Zadina. What do you think about this game, Josh?
I was kind of hoping Bertuzzi would go up to the top line, but Blashill doesn't want us to have nice things. So I'll have, unless we get clarity, I just don't know. Bertuzzi is obviously their best winger. So it depends where he slots in. We just don't know. If you can tell me it's going to be Larkin, Raymond, Bertuzzi, I'll play them. Suter, Zadina, Bertuzzi, not sure. So yeah, maybe, but it's a pretty stark price difference if you want to go from Detroit 1 to Detroit 2. So Detroit 1 with Nemestikov is $13K. Nemestikov is way cheaper than Bertuzzi. Detroit 2 is going to be 10-7. And if Bertuzzi ends up on that top line, it's going to be a pretty big price difference, and you probably don't have a swap ready. So, if you're going to play Detroit tonight, you're just going to have to guess and hope he's on 2 like the lineup sites have. Otherwise, you're going to be kind of stuck here. So, from that perspective, at 10-7, I kind of do Detroit 2. I just don't know if I'm going to get to them. I kind of prefer Seattle, the Yanni Gourde line. They're really cheap. Yanni Gourde's been playing 18, 19, 20 minutes for the past 5 or 6 games. He's going to get the minutes. So that's a really cheap filler that I like. I'm not really sure how they match up. I'm not sure. It doesn't matter really. They might have been even be sending out Gourde against top comp, but if it's Larkin, Raymond, Nemestikov, it doesn't really, there's nothing there. So that line is 8,200 to full stack. I don't think you need a full stack here. I think one-offing Yanni Gourde's fine. You want to 2-man him with Appleton. If you're doing power play stacks, you want to 2-man him with Blackwell. I think that's fine. I'm probably just going to look for fillers from this game. I also don't mind McCann Donato or McCann Johansson for some power play, but honestly, if this game wasn't on the slate, I wouldn't lose any sleep.
I kind of hear what you're saying. I do have a little bit of interest in Detroit too. If it ends up Suter, Bertuzzi, Vrana, that's something I would be very interested in. The thing is before Bertuzzi got yeeted from the lineup, the top line was Larkin, Nemestikov, Raymond. When Bertuzzi was in, it was flat slap Nemestikov on the top line. So I don't know. They're coming off a 1-0 win. I don't know if they change up the lineup dramatically. Just certainly not the top line for Bertuzzi. So I could see him sliding on the second line. It's just a matter of who he plays with. I think there's a pretty big difference between playing with Jakub Vrana and Filip Zadina, because Zadina I think is a decent player. Vrana I think is a top 10 goal scorer in the NHL. It's a pretty big difference between those 2 guys. So if we do get Suter, Bertuzzi, Vrana, if we get that at a morning skate here coming up anytime shortly, I will absolutely be interested in something like that. But otherwise, I think it would just be going to the Detroit top line. They actually haven't been that bad together. I know we like to make fun of Nemestikov, but 33 scoring chances generated per 60 minutes since February 1st. that's well above the league average. Like, they're not bad. Like, Yanni Gourde is a problem. That line has been getting better. I assume that's going to be the shutdown line. In fact, that's why I wrote up Gourde partially in the Power Plays article today. I expect he'll play like 18, 19 minutes as he's playing that shutdown role. So I think that'll be the matchup. That also frees up the McCann Donato 2-man that you talked about. I really do like that 2-man here tonight. They don't have a ton of minutes together, but in 60 minutes together, McCann and Donato are controlling 62% of the scoring chances. And you and I have talked about how good McCann is and how important he is to this lineup. So maybe a 2-man from them, some Detroit power play, or, even Detroit too, if we get a Bertuzzi, Suter, Vrana lineup. The only defenseman I really want out of this game is Carson Soucy. What about you?
Same. Yeah.
All right.
There's nothing on the wing side.
Yeah, easy enough. All right. We are out of here. I do believe we have a show coming up on Monday, but that does it for us today. Josh, before we get out of here, I'm going to ask you for your hat trick picks and your goalies. My hat trick pick, I'm wearing the jersey for a reason. Cole Caulfield. Cole Caulfield is my hat trick pick. My goalies are Thatcher Demko and UC Saros for cheaper guys that should see volume. Jake Allen, if you want to spend up. What do you got?
Yeah. Let's see what else. I guess like Igor at 72 is fine. I just worry about Tampa's shot volume. That's like a concern. So I guess going to Philip Gustafsson at 7,300 is fine. Like, Montreal's going to shoot. It's whether I'm stopping the puck, but like, goalie's a big roulette wheel, so who knows. And my hat trick pick is going to be JT Miller.
I love it. That's spicy. JT Miller, Cole Caulfield, your hat trick picks. We are out of here. We will be back on Monday for another NHL show. But until then, for producer Mike, for single entry assassin, Mr. Joshua Harris, I'm Michael Clifford saying good luck tonight, everybody.